Discovered I was 8 months pregnant, chose adoption over telling my judgmental family, and prioritized peace over their pressure. I, 40F, just recently found out that I am pregnant. Like. 8 months pregnant at this point. My fiancé, 40 male, and I weren't ever planning on having children. I have never wanted kids of my own and have always been upfront about this with my family and friends. Due to a series of bizarre medical events, I ended up pregnant despite long-term use of very effective, for me, birth control. I didn't know because a medication masked basically all the symptoms of early pregnancy. It was a fluke that I found out at 28 weeks, and it wasn't a happy surprise. I spent several days in complete hysterics. Now, a month later, I have come to terms for the most part. At this point there's nothing to do but finish this strange and unplanned journey. My fiancé and I have decided to pursue adoption through a very good agency. We're doing all the right things for the baby medically and we think we're doing the right thing with the adoption as well. We believe that kids deserve a family who is excited for them and delighted by them. And we can't give this child that experience. Here's where we may be Oz. We have told only the people closest to us about the pregnancy and our plans. This includes our closest friends and confidants, but only includes 2 members of my family, namely 2 that I thought would support us without pressuring us to do anything aside from what we've chosen. We're both close to my family as a whole, but they can be pushy. The other members of my extended family are very religious and honestly pretty judgmental. I think they would probably mean well but would actually end up stressing both myself and my fiancé out during a time that's already stressful. Of course, this means shutting them out of everything. No part in the birth, no information about the adoption, nothing. I know this would hurt them if they knew, but I think protecting my peace is priority right now. Edit to answer some common questions. My fiancé and I are seeing and will continue to see a counselor to help us navigate this process and make the best decisions for ourselves and the baby. No, we are not going to let anyone in our family adopt our child. I don't think that would be the best decision for anyone for many reasons. I didn't ask if I was the off for choosing adoption and I'm not interested in opinions on this. It isn't an easy decision but it's the one we've come to. Please stick to the topic. We are not planning to keep this a secret from these parts of our families forever. We as a couple who is going through an extremely stressful time want time to get through the last few weeks of my pregnancy, the birth, and the postpartum processing that we need. We're super aware of DNA testing and how secrets work, in that they don't. Once we have some room to breathe, we'll sit everyone down and explain our decisions. But months 8 to 9 of a high-risk pregnancy isn't the time to have my very religious family members breathing down my neck. We're still making those decisions. If we do have contact, we will sit down both of our extended families and tell them. Tell whomever you want to, when you want to. Just beware that if you wait too long someone else may spill the beans and disrupt your timetable. So even if you don't want to keep in contact they may want this info. Also, when I found my mom it was pretty wild seeing someone who looked like me for the first time in my whole life. Thank you for this comment. I'm so glad you've had a wonderful life and family. We've filled out tons of paperwork for the agency including exhaustive medical histories for our families, mine especially, because I have close relationships with them. We're still deciding on how much contact and involvement we'll have, but this really helps. I had my daughter at 22 in the 80s. Single mom. Left her addicted abusive dad when she was 4 months old. I came from a family that you take responsibilities for your mistakes and deal with the consequences. You made your bed, now go lie in it. Philosophy. I knew at 15 that I didn't want kids, that because of my massively abusive background I would not be a good parent. I did not have loving supportive family to stand behind me and step in to help when needed. I had majorly abusive, in every way, family addiction, all of that hell. Every day of my life. So textbook psychology. I made the bad choices that leads to. I had abuse, neglect and abandonment. And sure enough. When they found out I was pregnant. Gasp, by a black man. I was disowned. I was her world mother, father, brother, sister, grandparents, aunts, uncles and cousins. But at least no one was abusing her. I worked 3 jobs to keep a roof over our heads and loved her with all my heart but it wasn't enough. I married when I was 31 and she was 9. Things were okay the first 3 years, but when her little sister came along. It got really bad. She was used to have 100% of my attention. It was tough enough to be torn between a man and my daughter, neither one getting what they wanted from me. And I was shred in the middle. Add to that ovarian cancer while pregnant. It all went to hell. Now I'm 60. She is 37. She has always idolized her drug-addicted sperm donor. Believed every single lie that her dad's side of the family told her. She hates me. That child needed a family and all she had was me. A single person cannot do this on their own unless they have family support behind them. If I had have known half then what I know now, I would have given her up for adoption so that her emotional needs were met. Keeping a roof over your head is part of it. But if you cannot be present in your child's life, it just leads to abandonment issues. I love her. I wish her well and all the best. I wish I wouldn't have been selfish and keep her. I wish I had have given her up. I swear I think she would have been much happier. It isn't so much that I think I wouldn't be a good parent. I adopted my stepson when he was 8 and did an okay job if I say so myself. There's just a lot in my life right now that isn't compatible with a baby. I have a hectic and demanding job, our financial situation would be heavily strained. I have a lovely family that would try to support me in the best way they could, but probably would not be able to actually help much. And while I had a good childhood, I'm rather like my own mother and would probably provide a chaotic childhood for my daughter, which wouldn't be ideal. I know, I had one. Weird, messy, still full of love but not what I want for my baby. I'm sorry for the experience you had. Maybe one day your daughter will come around. Until then, I see you doing your best, and I admire how hard you tried. Update 1. I recently found myself in a situation I never expected. At 40, I discovered I was pregnant, completely unplanned. My fiancé, also 40, and I talked endlessly about our options, and ultimately we decided to pursue adoption. We kept the news from certain family members, thinking it would be easier for everyone involved. But then, everything changed. Due to medical complications, our baby girl arrived early, at just 35 weeks. Thankfully, we made it to an incredible hospital with specialized doctors and nurses who took such good care of us both. The moment they placed her on my chest in the delivery room, I felt something inside me shift. Instantly, I knew I was completely in love with her. I was in so much trouble, everything I thought I knew about what I wanted simply melted away. Afterwards, my fiancé and I spent hours talking, weighing our feelings, our situation, and our future. In the end, we decided, adoption was off the table. We are going to raise our daughter ourselves. We have steady jobs, our home is secure, and our support system of friends and family is strong. We're ready for this challenge, and, more importantly, we want her. I've reached out to every single family member and told them the news. To my relief, every one of them received it with understanding and warmth, even considering how unexpected it all was. Our lives have taken a turn I never imagined, but I can't help feeling like it's exactly the turn we were meant to take. Update 2. Our girl is home. She spent 9 days in the NICU learning how to remember suck, swallow, breathe and getting sunbathes under the Billy lights like a tiny reptile on a heat rock. She came home just over 5 pounds with a jaundiced tan and the softest owl hoots of a cry. We learned infant CPR from a nurse named Mary who could swaddle with one hand and make grown men sit up straighter just by saying their name. We also came home with an apnea monitor and a list of rules that felt taller than I am. I thought nothing in the world could be louder than that monitor until our first night, when the lead popped loose and it screamed. We did the drill exactly like they taught us and found her pink and breathing and outraged that we disturbed her. After that all 3 of us cried. Then we retaped the lead and kept going. Because the universe apparently wanted to stack every life event on the same week, we got married. It wasn't a grand thing. We walked down to the hospital chapel between feedings with 2 friends as witnesses and rings we ordered off the internet because my hands were still swollen and my real set didn't fit. The chaplain had peppermint tea and tissues. Our daughter slept across the hall under a tangle of wires that looked terrifying until they became normal. We said our vows with the kind of clarity that only comes after a week of beeping machines and bad cafeteria coffee. We signed the papers and went back upstairs in matching hospital wristbands, and it felt exactly right. I also closed a loop I wasn't sure how to handle. The agency reached out early on to let us know a couple had been tentatively matched with us when I was still in the adoption plan phase. We hadn't met them or promised anything legally, but there were people out there who had painted a nursery because they were told to be hopeful. I couldn't shake it. I wrote a letter first. Then the caseworker asked if we would be open to a short meeting for closure, and we said yes. We met in a coffee shop a block from the hospital. They were kind and very brave. We talked for an hour about everything and nothing, why we changed our minds, what their journey has been, that our little girl had the most dramatic hiccups. They gave us a tiny cardigan they had already bought just in case. I tried to give it back, and the woman said, "It's okay. She can wear it for us." So she will, and that cardigan is going in a box we'll keep for our daughter along with the hospital hat and the chapel program. It was the saddest and most humane conversation I've ever had, and I'm grateful we did it. Telling the family went mostly as well as I said before, with one hiccup that made me remember why we kept our circle small at first. My aunt showed up at the hospital with her pastor and 2 church ladies in tow to lay hands and pray over the incubators. The NICU staff was very polite as they ushered everyone out and gave me a look that said, "Do you want us to be the bad guys?" I said yes. Afterwards, I texted Auntie the rules, our visiting schedule, and a bright line about religion and medical spaces. I braced for a fight. She called me later, cried, and then actually apologized. The next day she left a bag on our porch with freezer meals and a note promising she would be the person who washes bottles if that's how she could help. My mother came over and folded laundry with surgical precision and pretended not to see me tear up when she did. We named our daughter something simple and strong that feels like her. The name we picked was not on any of our lists, and yet there it was when we looked at her. Seeing it on the birth certificate next to our names made everything click into place. The past month, the panic, the shift I felt when they put her on my chest. My stepson came by, taller than I remember, cradled her like a bomb and said hi, little dude, because he panicked and forgot the word girl. He went to install the car seat, found out he did it wrong, and very earnestly drove us to the fire station to have a firefighter fix it. I've never loved anyone more than I love those 3 in that parking lot. Work is on pause and the world has narrowed in a good way. Our house is quieter and messier and smells like baby lotion. We keep the lights low and the visitors few. We nap in shifts. My husband is a champion of 3 a.m. burp marathons and sings her the worst improvised songs I've ever heard. I have learned how to do everything one-handed and how to let other people help without narrating it. We are tired and happy and completely wrapped around a 5-pound person who snorts like a piglet when she's hungry. Update 3. We had our first "you're not new at this anymore" week. The neonatologist looked at our frog and her spaghetti of leads and decided we could retire the apnea monitor. They made us do the trial at home, 24 hours of watching the little light blink while pretending we weren't watching at all. Then we brought it back like we were returning a rental car without dings. Our living room stopped sounding like a small airport. That first night with no beeps felt like standing at the edge of a dark pool before jumping. We didn't sleep. She did, making those soft pigeon coos that are somehow louder when you're listening for disaster. In the morning we realized we'd both held our breath off and on all night and then laughed, which came out more like wheezing. We put her in the cardigan for the first time. It fit in that way baby clothes fit for 4 minutes, perfect, and then suddenly too small. We snapped a picture outside the pediatrician's office because she looked like a very serious librarian about to deny me a library card on principle. After her weigh-in, 6 pounds and change, a math problem solved with milk and stubbornness, we sent the photo to the couple we'd met at the coffee shop. 2 hours later my phone vibrated with a message from their caseworker and a grainy hospital photo. They had been matched out of the blue in the night, a little boy swaddled like a burrito, hair wild, eyes furious. "He's here," the woman wrote. "We are so stupidly happy." I sat in the parking lot with the cardigan librarian on my chest, cried into her hat, and felt my heart make room in a place I didn't know was a room. My aunt kept her promise in the most literal way possible. She texted for our address, then started turning up once a week with a tote bag and her sensible shoes, letting herself in with the spare key like a very respectful raccoon. She doesn't pray out loud, and she doesn't touch the baby without asking. She plants herself at the sink and turns on a podcast about murder, washes bottles and pump parts with an intensity that would pass an inspection, labels everything as if our fridge might be graded. She leaves a note each time: 2 casseroles in the freezer. Call me if you need someone to hold a crying person so you can shower. Any crying person. It feels like a truce and then it just feels like love. We did a field trip to the fire station with a box of donuts because my stepson said we should say thank you for the car seat safe. The same firefighter came out, recognized us, and said, "I see the little dude is a little ma'am," and stuck a holographic badge sticker on the car seat like she'd won something. My stepson pretended he was too cool and then asked if they had any spare stickers for inventory. He also started an album of her hat crimes. This child will tolerate exactly one hat and it is the one that makes her look like an egg in a bonnet. Bureaucracy tried to have a plot twist and lost. We had to fix a thing on the birth certificate because we rushed the paperwork and managed to hyphenate, unhyphenate, and rehyphenate our last names in a single afternoon. The county building had a chair with 3 good screws left. The clerk wore nails so magnificent I trusted her with anything delicate. Halfway through, I had to pump. She unlocked a supply closet like she was smuggling me into a speakeasy and handed me a sticky note that said, "Take your time. You're doing great." I sat between a box of toner and a mop, listening to the muffled murmur of fluorescent lights, and understood why people write love letters to strangers. My mom brought over a small jewelry box with a thin gold ring inside, the one she wore when she was younger than I am now. It wouldn't fit either of us correctly anymore, which felt like a metaphor I don't quite understand and don't need to. She told me, in the way she tells things she doesn't want to be a big deal, that after I was born she cleaned the baseboards with a toothbrush at 3 a.m. for a week because she was certain if she stopped something bad would happen. She didn't call it anything. I did, out loud, and then we both stared at the couch like we'd startled it. Later I told our counselor. Later than that I told my husband. The act of saying is a pry bar. Things move when you put a little pressure on them. Our girl has decided that my husband's worst sea shanty is her favorite song. He wrote it at 2 a.m. while pacing the hallway and rhymes burrito with mosquito and neato like a criminal. The first time she smiled for real it was on the second verse, the kind of smile that moves the eyes and then the cheeks and then the air in the room. He froze in the middle of a word and had to start over because his voice came out wobbling. She did it again at the chorus. I don't know that I've ever wanted time to stop so badly in my life. Work keeps tapping the glass. I had an email with the subject line "tiny ask" that was not tiny. I wrote back from the couch with 6 pounds of person asleep on my chest. My CEO is napping. We'll circle back. Everyone has been kinder than I dared to expect. One coworker left a bag of orange slices and a loaf of banana bread on our porch with a card that said, "For the witching hour." We dropped a card for the NICU night shift with a picture of our girl in the cardigan and a thank you that didn't begin to cover it. Mary wasn't on when we came by, which is probably why I could leave the building without crying. At home I put the chapel program, a hospital hat, and the cardigan tissue paper in a shoebox that used to hold my wedding shoes. The box is ridiculous and perfect and too big for what's in it right now. I like thinking we'll fill it. Tonight the house hummed like a spaceship, dishwasher, white noise machine, someone else's dryer 2 floors below. My husband fell asleep in the recliner with a baby spread on his chest, both of them making the same small snore. I watched her hand open and close on his shirt like she was testing how the world worked. My wedding ring sits right where it should now. It still surprises me when it flashes in the lamplight, like I've glimpsed myself in a window and recognized the person looking back. We didn't plan this. We walked into it anyway, and it keeps unfolding like a map we didn't know we needed, taking us down streets that already feel like home. Update 4. We had our first bath at home that didn't end with all three of us soaked and the baby looking like a betrayed otter. It took 2 attempts and a YouTube video filmed in 2009 by someone's aunt who whispered the whole time like the baby was a skittish deer. We warmed the bathroom with a shower, lined up towels like runway lights, and my husband held the thermometer like defusing a bomb. She slid her frog legs against my wrist, gave me the filthiest look I've ever seen on a person who can't roll over, and then finally relaxed, a buttered seal in 3 inches of water. She smelled like warm bread after. My husband wrapped her in the hooded towel with incongruent confidence and sang the Burrito Mosquito Shanty, because apparently it's a multi-genre hit. At my 6-week check I told my doctor the toothbrush on the baseboard story like it belonged to someone else and then made it present. She didn't blink. She called it by its name, wrote a prescription, and talked about brains like mine that love a checklist so hard they try to project manage fate. I picked up the little blue bottle on the way home and shook it once. It sounded like a maraca of permission. The first night I took it, nothing happened except I slept for 3 hours in a row between feeds and woke up not sure if angels had come and done the dishes. They hadn't. My mom did, later, with the same surgical precision, and didn't say anything about the bottle by the sink besides, "How do you want your tea?" Which is maybe the nicest sentence in any language. We met the couple from the coffee shop again, this time in the park on a day with wind that kept stealing our words and blowing them back to us. Their son has hair that sticks straight up like he's permanently startled. He slept on her chest with his mouth open in the exact shape of bliss. We sat on a bench like people on a postcard of winter pretending it's spring. We traded 10-minute naps of holding each other's babies and talked about the boring miracle of ounces gained in diapers. Conquered. There were no speeches. We took one photo, 2 exhausted adults on either side, 2 smaller people in the middle wearing hats like small planets, and promised to send it both ways. I printed a copy that afternoon and slid it into the shoebox with the chapel program and the firefighter sticker. The box is getting heavier in my hands even though it doesn't weigh anymore. My aunt came on Wednesday as usual with her sensible shoes and podcast murderers. Halfway through the bottle parade she turned the water off and said, too casually, "I lost one once, you know." I didn't know. She told me about a baby who never made it past 12 weeks and a church that didn't have a name for missing someone you never met, so she made one. Service. It's what she knows how to do. She looked at the tile like it might have an opinion. I put the baby in her arms and she did the thing where you sway even if there's no music. She doesn't pray out loud in my kitchen. She makes labels straight and takes the trash out without asking where the bin is. She cried into the top of my daughter's head like she finally found her own language. When she left there was a note on the counter about casseroles and also one line I hadn't seen from her before. "Thank you for trusting me with the breakable thing." I put that one in the shoebox, too. Bureaucracy tried again, this time in the form of a social security card that arrived with my maiden name spelled as if someone sneezed mid-typing. I called the number. A person with a voice like a warm blanket told me to bring her birth certificate and the baby herself if you want to show off. We went. The waiting room had a fish tank with 2 fish who hate each other. I fed her a bottle under a sign that forbids food and felt like a criminal until the guard walked over, cooed, and said, "Rules have exceptions for tiny people." The clerk had the kind of eyebrows that could run a small country and a stapler that sounded like justice. She fixed it while a hum sang the sea shanty under my breath because apparently my brain has been colonized. My husband had his consultation for the appointment, which is how we're naming it in the calendar. The urologist wore a tie with whales and said, kindly, that we are not unique but we are responsible, and I wanted to write that on a banner, and hang it over our sink. The day itself was less operatic than the internet makes it. He came home with instructions, a heroic frown, and a bag of frozen peas we rotated like a relay. Our girl took her longest nap on his chest while he lay on the couch with the remote exactly where he could reach it without moving anything else. My stepson walked by, saluted with a juice pouch, and said, "Thank you for your service," in the same tone he uses for the mail carrier. Later my husband announced from the couch that he felt like a brave little toaster, which is not medically useful but did make me laugh hard enough to scare the baby. We saw Mary by accident at the grocery store, in line behind me with a basket full of things that meant she was at the end of a shift and the beginning of another life. She looked at our daughter, now a full 7 pounds and a little, with cheeks that didn't exist 2 weeks ago, and said, "You grew her." It took everything I had not to cry on a rotisserie chicken. In the car I told my husband that gratitude is a physical sensation, like a wave or a bruise, and he said, "It's also a song, apparently," and started into verse 1. She grinned mid-burp like she knew a chorus when she heard one. Work keeps tapping, but softer. I set an out of office that just says, "Caring for a new person." We'll respond slowly. Thank you for patience, and the world did not end. A coworker sent a photo of a newly christened lactation room with a chair that had all 4 screws and a sign on the door that says "Welcome, CEO." I saved it in my phone album that used to be for conference selfies and is now all blurry close-ups of an ear and the occasional triumphantly clipped fingernail. Tonight my mother came over and held the baby while I took a shower so long the mirrors gave up. My wedding ring flashed in the steam and I thought of the chapel and the hospital and the county clerk and the speakeasy closet and a bench in a park in the wind. Our house hummed its spaceship hum, dishwasher, white noise, someone's bass 3 floors down. The baby fell asleep with her palm open on my collarbone like she was checking my pulse for me. The map keeps unfolding and we keep finding we've already memorized the turns, somehow, by walking them. I don't know if that's what people mean when they say it gets easier. I do know my husband can now change a diaper in the dark with one hand and rhyme mosquito with burrito in 3 different keys, and I can look at a tiny cardigan and feel 2 families inside it. It's messy and ordinary and it feels like the exact right kind of strange. Update 5. Our building pulled a stunt at 1:17 a.m. that I will be telling at Thanksgivings until the end of time. The fire alarm went off like a banshee with a megaphone, and the hallway filled with the smell of someone else's idea of toast. The baby slept through the first 30 seconds because she is either a champion or unbothered by apocalypse. The rest of us did not. My husband grabbed the diaper bag and, in a display of muscle memory no one asked for, also grabbed the bag of frozen peas from the appointment like we were fleeing with our heirlooms. I tucked the baby against my chest, hat like a tiny egg, and my stepson, bless him, took one look around and scooped up the shoebox. Important things, he said, like a museum curator who has decided priorities in a fire. We stood on the sidewalk in pajamas and the kind of coats you can put on while walking and realized the baby's white noise machine is, in fact, the alarm system of a mid-rise apartment. She blinked and then made a small satisfied noise, like we had taken her to an avant-garde concert. The same firefighter came striding out of the truck, recognized us, and said, "Well, if it isn't the little ma'am," and put another holographic badge on the car seat handle, so now she looks like she won a mayoral race. It was burnt bagel crumbs in a toaster on 4. We went back upstairs while our neighbor across the hall pressed a blanket into my arms like a magic trick and said, "You'll give it back when you give it back." The baby slept through her first evacuation. We did not. We lay awake and watched the ceiling like it might try something. She laughed for the first time 2 days later. Not a smile, not a gas rumor, an actual laugh that hopped out of her like a hiccup with a party hat. My husband sneezed while mid-shanty and the sound that came out of her startled both of us so much he sneezed again and she laughed harder. It was like finding a hidden drawer in a dresser I've been opening every day. We tried not to make too big a deal of it in case it got shy, and failed completely. My mom cried. My stepson recorded, mislabeled the video gremlin cackle, and set it to slow motion like he was delivering proof of joy to a court. We did the 2-month appointment in a room painted cheery yellow that I wanted to peel off the walls and carry home. The nurse had stickers the size of hubcaps and a voice like a lullaby. "Shots are terrible and also fine," she wailed her whole soul for 30 seconds and then hiccuped, nursed, and glared at me like I had personally invented needles. I cried about 1/4 teaspoon's worth, which felt like the correct dosage. There are 2 tiny band-aids on her thighs like badges, which I am keeping for the shoebox even though I know adhesive does not age gracefully. She weighed in at numbers that made the pediatrician nod, and we left with a printout that said thriving, which I want to frame without being insufferable. Bureaucracy, because it cannot stand to be left out, asked my husband to perform a courier mission with his dignity in a paper bag. The follow-up for the appointment involved a brown lunch sack, a stopwatch, and a building downtown that looks like it sells insurance. He texted me from the elevator, "I am a secret agent of science." He returned with a receipt that might as well say mission accomplished and the kind of swagger that comes from being told by a professional in a whale tie that you are, in fact, responsible. We ate celebratory sandwiches and high-fived over the baby's head like we were in a sitcom that had hired us to model communication. Work pressed its face to the glass again and then surprised me by stepping back. I did a 2-hour meeting with my camera off and my mic on while sway walking the baby around the apartment and realized my boss was doing the same thing in his house, only with a Labrador. HR emailed to say the lactation room now has a plant and a shelf for snacks. Someone left a pack of oatmeal cookies and they're labeled for CEOs and I laughed in a supply closet until I had to take a lap. We went back to the park with the couple from the coffee shop on a day when the wind was gentler and the grass looked like it remembered its job. Their son's hair still defies physics. We traded stories about night stretches like baseball cards. We got 4. We got 3.5 but it felt like 11, and passed around a bag of clementines like communion. They brought a sleeper their boy had outgrown with tiny whales printed on it. We brought a hat our girl had decided was an insult to her aesthetic. The exchange felt like we were making a secret treaty. There was a moment where both babies woke, looked at each other with the blank intensity of 2 small moons, and then fell back asleep in tandem like a joke no one gets but them. We took another photo. The shoebox is becoming a time machine. Sometimes I sit with it open and the whole room smells like laundry and paper. My aunt's Wednesdays have become part of the calendar the way sunrise is part of the day. You notice if it doesn't show up. This week she arrived without the podcast and with a casserole she admitted she didn't make. "I commissioned it," she said, deadpan, which is an energy I admire. Mid-bottle she paused and said, "I found the name for it, the thing my church didn't have a name for. It's grief." She looked straight at me when she said it, so I didn't look away. We are all learning to say the right words out loud. She asked if she could take the baby for a stroll down the hallway, nothing fancy, just a lap and back. She returned 11 minutes later, triumphant, with 2 grandmothers from the 2nd floor trailing behind her like ducklings, both of them already in love. They gave me unsolicited advice I did not resent because it came stapled to a bag of homemade cookies and a handwritten index card with both of their phone numbers and the words "we have held screaming people before." The village sometimes builds itself when you open the door a crack. We attempted a newborn photo session despite the baby not being newborn anymore and also being an anarchist. The photographer had a room that smelled like clean cotton and a beanbag big enough to be its own zip code. The second time she arranged a pose that looked like a tiny person inside a cloud. My daughter pooped with the force of a geyser and everyone reacted like we were at Old Faithful at dawn. The photographer didn't flinch, she caught it with a hand towel like a baseball and said, "Serene, this is good luck in my studio," which I have decided to believe with religious fervor. The pictures, when they came back, looked like we live inside a greeting card for a life I didn't know I wanted. There's one where she's yawning so big you can see her future molars, and my husband and I are out of focus behind her, laughing at something you cannot hear. I'm putting a print of that in the shoebox. I don't care if it makes no sense, the box is not for sense. It snowed for 15 minutes like a rumor. I put her in the cardigan even though it doesn't fit, because I needed to see it one more time outside. She tolerated exactly one photograph and then made her feelings known in a way the geese down the block surely heard. We came back in, warmed our hands on a mug, and retired the cardigan to the box with ceremony. "Thank you for your service, little sweater." My stepson placed the firefighter sticker next to it like a medal and announced that the Hat Crimes album has reached double digits and will be released to family only, no press. Tonight the house did its spaceship hum. The alarm panel on the wall was smugly quiet. My husband has expanded the shanty into at least 3 verses, one of which is entirely about safe sleep practices and another that lists her nicknames like he is inventing a taxonomy. The laugh showed up twice, on purpose, like lightning agreeing to happen in the same place again. My mother left a bag of clementines and a new toothbrush for the baseboards you aren't cleaning, which is how she says she sees me trying. I shook the little blue bottle and took it, and sleep came like it had been waiting in the hallway with its shoes already on. We didn't plan any of this. The plan keeps happening anyway and it keeps being better than the plan would have been. I keep catching sight of us in windows, me with a person wrapped to my chest like contraband, my husband with pea-bag swagger, my stepson with a shoebox like a crown, and recognizing the people looking back. The map keeps unfolding, sometimes it unfurls with sirens. Sometimes it puts a tiny laugh in your kitchen and says, "Here, draw this turn by heart."